If the data and information in the public cloud, that doesn't mean that everybody or everything can be accessed. So it will going to provide the minimum security. So if we are keeping the data and information of an organization, somehow that is confidential. This cloud solution is giving more technologies or giving more services than the traditional infrastructure. This SOA is considered as a useful architecture. Why? Because here we are having an architecture which is based on the service. What kind of their want. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I am Rohini TS from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So in our today's session, we are dealing with a B.C.A third year, that is semester 5 of a subject called Cloud Computing and Big Data Analytics, and we are in the unit 1 of session 3, that is Introduction to Cloud Computing and Big Data Analytics. So in our last session, we had discussed regarding the cloud deployment model, as well as I have discussed regarding the cloud service model. So when it comes to the deployment model, there we have a public cloud, private cloud, community cloud, as well as the hybrid cloud. So when it comes to the service models, there we have learned regarding the infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, then software as a service. By containing those topics, so in our today's session, let me discover or let me study with this security in the private cloud as well as in the public cloud. So as we all know that public cloud is nothing but it is a technology. There we can access, everybody can access the data and information which is resides in the public cloud. There is no restriction of over accessing the content of a public cloud. So if the data and information in the public cloud, that doesn't mean that everybody or everything can be accessed. So it will going to provide the minimum security, but it is available to everybody can access the data and information which is resides in the public cloud. So when the security concern which is in the public cloud, so this means that you are enlisting a third party provider in order to deliver a set of services over the internet. So here, who is going to provide the service? If you are opting a public cloud, third party will going to accept or third party will going to give you the services over the internet. That third party will going to get the services of a public cloud from the owner. Those who are the owner of that public cloud, they are going to give it as a contract, or they are going to give the content of a public cloud to the third party. Their provider or a cloud brokers will going to accept that services, and they are going to provide that to the clients or a people, those who are in need of a cloud computing. So when it comes to the public cloud, main concern is regarding what? Accessibility will be available for everybody, but when it comes to the concern regarding the security, then there will be less security than the private cloud. That is regarding the security in public cloud. So here it does not lack of major security precautions. So when it comes to the public cloud, it doesn't mean that there is no security. There will be a security, but when we are comparing this public cloud with the private cloud, then there will be a less security in the public cloud than the private cloud. So that over the years, public cloud providers have adopted and improved upon their security, means enable them to manage the attacks that have only grown in terms of sophistication. So that means when we working with or when we having our data in the public cloud, at that time they are going to take some security measures in order to avoid the attack. But it doesn't mean that everything will going to be hacked, whatever is there in the public cloud. And also we can say that there are some limitations to the level of security when it comes to the public cloud. So accessibility will be there. They are going to provide the security in order to avoid the attacks, but somehow there is less security than the private cloud. So now we'll see about the security in private cloud. As we all know that this private cloud is owned by an individual, like it is owned by a particular organization for the purpose of particular organization or an enterprise. In order to satisfy their requirements, this private cloud come into existence. So in this private cloud, main concern is regarding what? Ownership. So rest with a single company or an enterprise will going to take care about the private cloud, and it will going to act as a traditional data center, and also it is a non-shared resources that is optimized to provide processing power and storage capacity for the various type of functions of an organization, because this is owned by particular company or the organization or the enterprise. So when it is owned by particular company, at that time it has the ability or a capacity in order to provide the processing power, and also it has a storage capacity in order to manage or in order to have a various kinds of functions which is resides in particular organization. So but when it comes to the private cloud security, there will be more security than the public cloud, because here only authenticated people can access the data and information which is resides in the private cloud. So unauthorized access cannot be takes place in the private cloud. Along with the existing security policies, this private security or a private cloud will also going to have some more security concern related techniques in order to minimize the attacks. So there will be more security in the private cloud than in the public cloud. So if we are keeping the data and information of an organization, somehow that is confidential, so that it will going to allows only authorized users. So it will not provide accessibility to any unauthorized person. So by incorporating the firewall, so it will going to act as a security consent techniques in order to protect the sensitive assets. So why I am specifying this as a asset? Because data resources of an organization, any data and information which is related to the organization is like a asset. Out of that asset they are earning a money. So that data and information needs to be very confidential. That can be takes place with the help of this private cloud if it is having a more security. This is regarding what? Security in public cloud as well as in the private cloud. So now we'll see about the next topic, that is cloud infrastructure self-service. As the name indicates, self-service in the sense what? So we have some resources. So I can take computing as a resource, accounting as a result, and some processing, networking related things, input, output, some of the applications, softwares, everything will be considered as what? Some services, or everything will be considered as a resources. So utilization of that resources in an efficient manner is so important. So when it comes to the cloud infrastructure self-service, this cloud infrastructure will going to have a collection of services. This has a collection of services. So if you just imagine a pool, so within that pool, every resources has been dumped. So now, based on my requirement, based on my choice, or based on my opportunity, I will just wanted to pick that services whenever I want and however I want, for how much time I want that particular services. That will going to be provisioned with the help of this self-service. That means whatever the content or whatever the set of services is there in the cloud infrastructure can be accessed by anyone at any time, irrespective of the type of a client and irrespective of their locations, their time. Without considering anything, they are just going to provide the service. That is of self-service. So nobody is there to guide you or nobody is there to assist you. So if you know about the services, if you want that services in order to incorporate that to your organization or to the enterprise, you just need to log in. You just need to pick up that informations or resources based on your requirement. That is regarding what? Cloud infrastructure self-service. You just take an example of recharging to your mobile internet connection. So that means what? You have a SIM card or you have a network, so you wanted to recharge it. So how it will going to take place? So if you consider the earlier days, you are supposed to visit the shop or you are supposed to have some scratch cards in order to do the recharge and all. So but now how we are doing? So we are doing that process by our own. That means what? Self-service. So we have a cloud infrastructure. The resource is available all the time in order to satisfy the requirement of a customer. But here nobody is there to take care about what kind of services that you require. Instead of that, they are dumping all the services in a pool. If you want that service, you can get it. So if you don't want it, you can put back into the resource pool. So this indicates that the proper utilization of a resource will going to be takes place. That means however the cloud infrastructure is there, it will going to be it will provide the self-service technique. So if you want, you can access it. If you don't want, you can put it back to the resource pool, and that can be used by someone else. So that is the main concept regarding this cloud infrastructure self-service. So here, cloud infrastructure has to be provisioned and paid for upfront in private clouds. So when we are having this cloud infrastructure, it mainly somehow concerned regarding the private cloud. So why I am saying this? Because this private cloud is owned by particular organization. So if it is owned by particular organization, at that time their main concern is to satisfy the requirement of a company. So when the environment changes, when the requirement changes, it has to be very conscious in order to match the requirements of a customer or match the requirements of an organization. So it will be paid for upfront in private cloud. So users pay for resources as they use. So as I told the example, if you consider the network recharge, at the time you are going to pay the money as the requirement. That means if you are taking it for 199, then you need to pay only that much. So if you are wanting to have more data packs, or if you wanted to have unlimited calls and all, there will be some plans. So that means whatever the plans that you are acquiring, to that only you have to pay. So that means whatever you are using, whatever you wanted to use, for that only you are paying. So that we are going to pay for the resources as we are going to use, and it is allowing for the capacity fluctuations over time. So now for this month, I just want I just want the net pack for this month only. But what if my requirement exceeds, or what if my requirement extends? At that time, over the fluctuation of a time or over changing of a requirement of a customer, it has to be capable to manage that requirement. For example, I just wanted to recharge for 3 months now, but after that 3 months, I wanted to recharge for 1 year. So this cloud computing infrastructure has to be able or capable in order to provide that services as per my requirement. So that is regarding this cloud infrastructure self-service, and also self-service provisioning of infrastructure capacity is only possible up to a point in a private clouds. So this can be happen only in the private cloud, and also standard capacity planning and purchasing processes are required for major increases. It has to be standardized the purchasing, and it has to standard the capacity planning in order to increases the utilization of this cloud infrastructure. For a large enterprise wide solution, some cost savings are possible from providers, economies of the scale. Somehow it is reasonable. So if your requirement goes high, so if you wanted to recharge only for 30 days, somehow that will cost more. But if you are recharging it for 90 days, at that time there will be some concessions, or there will be some other attractive packs will be there in order to get the services, or in order to reduce the cost of that particular services. This is regarding cloud infrastructure self-service. Main is what? We have a resources based on the requirement of mine, based on the fluctuations of a time. As the environment changes happens, that infrastructure has to be ready in order to satisfy the requirement of a particular organization or a company. We'll see the next topic, that is gamut of cloud solution. What is this gamut of cloud solution? In the sense, this cloud solution is giving more technologies or giving more services than the traditional infrastructure. That is what we will be calling that as a gamut. So I have some of the technology which is not so capable to satisfy the requirement of a customer. At that time, we are thinking uniquely and we are bringing the new solutions to the cloud. So then that will be termed as what? Gamut. That means it has to satisfy, or it has to have some upgraded version than the traditional one. So there are 5 commonly used categories we have in the gamut of cloud solution. So what is the first one? Platform as a service. Already we have discussed regarding this. So this is provisioning of the hardware and operating system, frameworks and database for which developers write custom applications. There will be restrictions on the type of software they can write, offset by built-in application scalability. What it means? PaaS in the sense platform as a service. So they are rendering some services which is related to what? Hardware operating system, and it is giving a framework, that is some structures of the cloud it is giving, and also we have a database. Okay, so this will going to be used by the developers in order to have or in order to write a custom application. So somehow we are going to write applications, or we are going to have a set of software in order to satisfy the requirement of a particular scenario, or in order to satisfy the requirement of a particular customer. So when I am considering this PaaS as a gamut of a cloud solution, at that time there must be a capability, or there must be a provision to provision the hardware. That means provision in the sense what? It has to provide the service. What kind of service it has to provide? It can be related to hardware, it can be related to operating system, database, framework, and it has to provide the environment to create a customized applications to the developer that has to satisfy the requirement of a customer. So that is regarding what? First gamut, that is PaaS. Next we have a software as a service. So if I have a software as a service, what are the provisioning will be there? So this is the provisioning of the hardware, operating system, and special purpose software which is made available through the internet. I can't use the traditional software, I can't use the traditional application to satisfy my unique requirements. At that time, it has to able, or we have to create some special purpose software which has to satisfy the unique requirement of a user. So here, when we are having this SaaS, at that time, this will going to have a capability, or it will provide a provisioning of a hardware. So by having this SaaS as a service for my cloud solution, I can provision. That means if I want it, I can get it. If I don't want it, I can put it back to the resource pool. That is nothing but provisioning. They have to provide the services. So here, if I have this SaaS, then it will going to help us to provision hardware, operating system, mainly special purpose of software. Next, we'll see about the infrastructure as a service. So here, this is the provisioning of hardware or virtual computer infrastructure. It will going to have a related things which is related to the physical component. Like it will going to have a hardware and virtual computers where the organization has control over the operating system. When the organization or an enterprise have a control over the operating system, at that time we can provision either hardware or any of the virtual machines or virtual computers in order to run the operations of a organization. That provisioning can be takes place with the help of this infrastructure as a service, and thereby it is allowing the execution of arbitrary software. So with the help of this infrastructure as a service, it will allow us to provision, or it will allow us to execute the arbitrary softwares. We'll see the next gamut, that is related to storage as a service. So I have a hardware, I have a software, I have some skilled developers. Now I wanted to store my data and information in a cloud as a service. How we are going to do that? With the help of this storage as a service. So this will going to have a provision of databases. Databases will going to hold the data, and that means I can say it is a large collection of data and information, like services built on the utility computing basis, for example gigabyte per month. So you can get a provision of a storage. So if you take the example of your Google Cloud, at that time, or if you can take the example of Gmail. So what they are going to do, they are just going to give you the 15 GB of memory space free. So if you wanted to have some more memory space which is not really existed in your Gmail account, at that time you can pay for that and you can get the services. Same thing will going to be happen in this storage as a service. We can have a provision of a storage space like a databases. There I can store large amount of data with a variety of data. At last we have a desktop as a service. It will going to provisioning of the desktop environment either within a browser or as a terminal servers. So what we can provision here, desktop environment. That desktop environment can be either within a browser or that can be act as a terminal server in order to satisfy the requirement of an organization. So these are the gamut of a cloud solution. We'll see the next topic, that is principal technologies. So what is this principal technologies? So as we all know that mainly we are going to have a cloud technology in order to get a services that will be over the internet in the terms of software, hardware, any of the application or network related things. And also we have learned regarding the virtualization. That means it is not physically existed, but it will has a capability to satisfy the requirement of a customer. Everything is available online. If you just want it, you can get it. If you don't want it, you can just put it back to the resource pool. Okay, that is the main concept. When we are having this principal technology, we are going to have a main concern regarding the cost. So main cost is what? In order to reduce the cost. That means in the terms of developers or in the terms of the one who is providing a service. So their main intention regarding the cost is what? They have to get more revenue by rendering a services as a cloud. But when it comes to the perspective of a customer, their main concern is regarding what they no need to pay any cost for the initial expenditure or a capital expenditure. Why? Cloud computing is providing a services to the customer as a service, right? So they are going to set everything. They are going to give you the stage with a red carpet. You just need to perform. So same thing. When we are having this principal technology, main concern is regarding what? Cost. That can be in the perspective of owner, that can be in the perspective of developer, in the perspective of customer, anything it could be. Mainly what? Reduction and gaining a revenue out of that cost. And we have a agility. Agility in the sense what? User should not bother about the upgradations or updation of a software or application, whatever they are owning as a service from the cloud. Okay, that is related to agility. And also we have a next main one, that is time to market. So what it indicates, you must know when you are supposed to bring your services to the market on time. So if it is need of a market, if it is a requirement of a customer, at that time only you have to satisfy. This is the main technology or techniques which comes as a principal technology, main related to cost and related to agility and also related to time to market. So if you are bringing any of the blankets or if you are bringing any of the sweaters or shrugs to the market during the summer, nobody is like to purchase that. But when you are bringing it at the time of winter or rainy season, at the time the market will, that response of that particular market will be very high. So that means what? You have to know what market needs at the particular situation or a scenario. You can also take the example of distribution of masks, or you can take the example of sales of a mask. So when the COVID time occurs, at that time everybody fond of taking the mask. But if you consider the olden days, nobody were thinking about the mask at all. That is what reason we have to understand what the market needs. So that is what we have to satisfy the requirement of a customer on time. So the cloud orchestrator and provisioning engine is a layer of software that interacts with the multiple servers. So here cloud orchestrator is important and provisioning engine is important. What is this cloud orchestrator? That is mainly related to automatic. So whatever the services it will going to provide, it needs to be automatic. So I don't want it to get it done by others. I just want it to be automatic. If any of the networking packages running out of the time or when it is reaching to the expire time, automatically it has to renew. So that is related to automatic. And provisioning in the sense what? I just no need to wait for anybody to come and install that particular software to my mobile or a laptop. So provisioning in the sense, if I want that particular service, then it has to be ready in order to get the service. So it has to provide a service. So when this principal technology, it will going to deal with a cloud orchestrator and also provisioning engine. So these two are the layers of software that interacts with the multiple servers. And also it enables the IT department to pool resources together across the server, defines standardized tiers of the services called virtual compute centers. So it is not only related to automations or a provisioning. Along with that, it has to, like IT department or IT factors has to pool all the resources together So if all the resources are together, so if you consider any marketing and all, whether you want veggies, whether you wanted any of the sprouts, whether you want any of the vegetables, everything is available at the same location, right? So here also they have to bring all the resources together across the server defined standardized tiers. So it has to be standardized, then it has to be bring to the market in order to satisfy the requirement of a customer with a reduction in the cost, and it must be able to automatically or needs to be automated to updation or upgradation of any of the services which is provided by the cloud. This is regarding principal technology, and also here cloud orchestrator and provisioning engine. What it will going to do? So using this, IT department can share underlying cloud infrastructure in a secure multi-tenant manner. So how many people, n number of customer can take a benefit of a single kind of services, but it should not breach the security. So when we are saying this as a multi-tenant manner, same operations or a same applications or a software can be used by multiple users at a time. So if I'm using WhatsApp and if others are using WhatsApp, the person one who created that application, they didn't build in order to satisfy the requirement of an individual customer. It is not what a customized thing. So they have a common features that every customer can get the requirement satisfied. That means what? Multi-tenant in the sense, same operations or a same applications or a software will going to be used by more than one people at a time. So here it has to provide a secure multi-tenant. If I'm using WhatsApp, then it has to provide the security for me. If another person is using a WhatsApp, in the same way, the person also should get the security whatever I'm getting from my WhatsApp or any of the software. That is related to cloud orchestrator and provisioning. So when we are having this provisioning, at that time the standard, using this, it is a standard collection of VMS that can be made. Policies on how to use this can be set. So if when we are having this principal technology, at that time we are going to set some standards. So based on some standards, based on some rules, we will get to know what is our boundary. If I get to know that, then I will get to know how to use this and what are the benefits I can get out of it. So then IT department or IT involvement is not at all required in order to involve in the infrastructure enabling work. Why? Because it is automated one, that is orchestrator is there, and provisioning. You can provision your, you can take your services which is already resides in the service pool. This is related to principal technology. We'll see the next topic, that is cloud strategy. Strategy in the sense what? We have to plan something in order to be better than others. So if you wanted to be in the market or if you wanted to be top in the market, then you have to analyze what is the need of a market right now. That means you have to be very conscious and you have to be very ready in order to satisfy the requirement of a customer on time. Okay. So cloud strategy, there we have a key steps in the cloud implementation planning. So we have to follow some of the stages, or we have to follow some of the steps in order to satisfy the requirement of a customer. Okay. So we have to make some plan, we have to be very conscious, and we have to available to the customer, and we have to give unique solution in order to requirement the customer requirement. So now we'll see some of the steps. Understand cloud strategy. First is what? I need to understand what is the strategy is all about, what is the need of a customer, and also define cloud application requirement. What are the requirement of this cloud application? So if I wanted to make a strategy, I wanted to think about some of the hardware, software. Then what are the requirements of the application? We have to think. Assess cloud readiness. How this cloud is ready. For example, if the cloud is affected by any of the failures, or if something goes wrong or any natural disasters happens, at that time how this cloud is able to come from the recovery stage. So it got failure, and how this cloud is recovered from the particular failure. So that is related to what? Readiness of the cloud. At a time, how many user can be satisfied with the cloud service. That indicates the readiness of a cloud, and it also defines the high level cloud architecture. There must be some framework. There must be some standards or a boundaries or a structures of the architecture. Then identifying a change management requirement. So It has to satisfy the requirement of a customer based on the changing needs of a market and also develop roadmap and implementation plan. So now customer want this service, at the time they require another kind of service, they don't want any service, they have some changes in the techniques. Mainly is what? It has to develop a roadmap. How can we reach to the requirement of a customer? How can we satisfy the requirement of a customer? By having or by getting some strategies and implementation plan. Next, we'll see about the cloud design and implementation using SOA. What is this SOA? Service Oriented Architecture. As we all know that mainly we are having a cloud services. Mainly we are having a cloud that provides anything to the customer as a service. We have to pay for that. If it is providing or rendering a services, we have to pay for that. That is mainly based on the terms pay as you use. So if you are using these services for 1 year, then you have to pay for that much. So if you are using only for the 1 hour, you have to pay only for 1 hour. So same thing, cloud designing and implementation using SOA. I'm designing a cloud by making use of some of the strategies, and I'm implementing a cloud based on some of the strategies, that too by making use of a SOA. What is this SOA? That is Service Oriented Architecture. I have to give a services which is based on the requirement of a customer. So if I am bringing any of the application which is no of the use to the customer, if I am bringing any of the architecture which is no of use to the designer, that doesn't mean that we have a capability to produce the cloud. So that doesn't mean that. So we have to bring the solutions, or we have to have some of the services which need to satisfy the requirements of end user. Here also, service-oriented architecture is a software design and software architecture design pattern which is based on the structured collection of discrete software modules. It is a collection of discrete modules. That means it is not a continuous model, or it is not related to monotonous activity. Instead of that, it is a software and it is a collection of discrete software modules and known as services that collectively provide the complete functionality of a large software applications. I have applications, I wanted to have large functionality. That functionality and diverse of that particular software concern or a software modules will going to be given by this SOA, service oriented architecture. Now I wanted to share some of the images. For that I am going to create one application. I just wanted to share only videos. I wanted to create one more software. So what is this? I'm just thinking about the service which is oriented on the architecture. Based on the requirement, we are rendering a services. That too by making use of some of the service models which will going to satisfy or which will going to have complete package of a functionality of all the large software application. So here, cloud-based application consists of many granular, coarse-grained services offered on the cloud. So it will going to include many services in order to satisfy the requirement of a customer. This SOA is considered as a useful architecture. Why? Because here we are having an architecture which is based on the service. What kind of they want, whether it is related to software, whether it is related to hardware or networking things, based on their requirement, they are creating architecture. So mainly to satisfy the requirement of a customer. This is regarding cloud design and implementation using SOA. We'll see the next topic, that is conceptual cloud model. What is this conceptual cloud model defines? It is what? It is a system which is based on the cloud-based system. Okay. So this will going to have collection of all the services that may be related to or having a responsibility, interfaces, how can I communicate with one another, and relationships and the way they collaborate to deliver the required functionality. We are creating a software, we are having a system in order to have a sum of the functionality. Then how that functionality must be, what is the relationship between one module to another module, how it is interoperability will be there, and what are the responsibility of each module. So what is its interface, how it can communicate with one module to another module. All together will going to be constitute as a service, as a system. So that represents the conceptual cloud model. So you can see here, it will be described as a structure of cloud-based services as a system in the terms of its software components. We are having a concern regarding the software components, how one software component is compatible with another software component in order to fully achieve the requirement of a functionality. This is regarding conceptual cloud model. We'll see about the next thing, that is conceptual component mode has below offerings. What are the offerings it will going to give? High-level service components that form the services provided by the offering. So it will going to have a high level of service component and also the resources that supports the cloud services. It also have a resources that will going to support the cloud services, and it will includes technical components. So if I am saying conceptual cloud model, that is not only related to software, it also have a technical components that provides the technical underpinning of the cloud service. If I wanted to give any of the services that may include software, so there also we have to think about the techniques. So we have to do some planning or a strategy. That offering can also be provided by this conceptual cloud, and also external and internal services that are leveraged by the cloud application services. So it has what? It has a high level service, and it has a resources, it has a technical components, and also it has external and internal services which will going to help or which will going to leverage the cloud application services. And it has some of the components. Cloud conceptual component model should contains the following elements. What are the elements it must include? The conceptual structure of the cloud application. Main is what? The conceptual structure of the cloud application. Second component is what? The dynamic interaction and dependencies between the various conceptual component. I have a conceptual component or a structure, then there must be operability or compatibility or interaction, dynamic interaction and dependencies between the various components of a conceptual cloud, and also the components that comprise the cloud services provided by the application. That indicates the components of the cloud that has to render a services to the customer in order to satisfy their requirement as well as the enterprise requirement. We'll see about the next topic, that is cloud application security and privacy principles. If you are using a cloud, we are all expect to keep our data confidential, so that along with the traditional security, this cloud applications is also going to provide additional security by incorporating some of the techniques. So it includes governance, and it has a authentication and access control, and it will going to have a data protection and logging and alerting. So we'll see about the governance. So here we are going to have a governance in order for a decisions on a SLA. And also we have authentication and access control. So if I am dumping or if I am having any of the data and information in the cloud, at that time this will going to provide additional security than the traditional one. So it will going to provide only accessibility to the person one who is authorized. So based on some authentication technique like two-way authentication checking, like sending OTP, by sending some of the messages in order to get a confirmation this is the authenticator or a genuine user. By getting all those things, then only it will going to allow in order to access the content. So there's additional support to the existing method in order to suit the cloud environment. And we have data protection. So protection of data is important in the organization because it is an asset of an organization. So it requires changes to the existing methods of data protection. So that means disclosures or modifications as we move the virtualized storage. So if you are moving from or physical storage to the virtual storage, then the expectation will be high. So we are going to expect high security for the data. So this cloud application security and some of the privacy principle has to provide the data security which is resides in the cloud. And we have a logging and alerting. So when anybody is or individual is logging into the cloud, then it has to alert something. That means if some malpracticing is taking place, if someone is trying to hack your data and information, then it has to alert the authenticated user. So when it comes to the logging, ability to tie actions to the individual. So if you are logging in, it will going to give you the message. So if you are using that, it will give you the tracking of that activities. And alerting in the sense recognizes the malicious act and bring the concerned person. That means if some malicious activities or some of the malpractice or any of the breaching of security is taking place by the unauthorized person, at that time this cloud principles or a privacy principle will going to alert the genuine user. So by having all these things, there will be a possibility of having a application security with the help of this privacy principle. So it includes governance, authentication and access control, data protection, and with the help of logging and alerting. We'll see the last topic of this unit 1, that is cloud service defined. How we are going to define the services of a cloud. So this will going to highlight the aspect of service. On what terms they are providing a service. So it can be used by who is my user of this service, who can get benefit out of this, and where I can use this, and cloud-based different platform integration and deployment services. Together what we are going to call, this will be called as what? Cloud service defined. So we are defining a services in the terms of its scope and in the terms of its different platforms and its integration, deployment services. And also it will going to provide some of the services like a specific IT deliverable that provides the customer value. At last it has to give the value for the customer in order to satisfy the requirement, and it is measurable. So we can measure the services, what they are providing, how they are providing, and it provides the basis for doing business with customer, and also it is delivered through a services of a processes or activities. I hope you all understood. Here I have listed out some of the important questions of unit 1. You can take the screenshot out of it. So I hope it will going to be helpful for your examinations. So this is about today's session. So in my next session, I will be dealing with a unit 2, that is cloud solutions. So until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.